What's up, everybody? No Limit Sports Podcast, special edition. Drew Crosby from Sportsplug 757. Marc Davis here from WTKR News 3. And we are talking about the retirement of a legend, the end of an era, Drew, a guy who rewrote the history books, essentially, for girls basketball in the area. Darnell Dozier walking away after 31 seasons, 793 wins, 16 state titles, and the list goes on.
Yeah, I think those numbers are like ridiculous. It's crazy, and then on top of that, I believe 12 of those state titles was in the time frame of only 13 years.
The last 13 years, yep.
That is completely amazing.
It's crazy,
right?
Right?
When you see coaches like this, take that time away as well. It's such a bittersweet moment because of course, you want to, continue to have that around, that legendary dominant factor that he continues to bring to Princess Anne. But again, it's good to see that, he receiving his flowers, of course,
100%.
And being able to move on. And that's one of the big things. Again, it leaves a lot, of space for, what's next at Princess Anne. But, I just wanted to kind of talk about, like, the dominance that he's brought to the program over this amount of years. It's pretty amazing as well. They've been able to dominate in their area. And I believe, like, a 71-game win streak, that was, like, one of the things that went the craziest.
Yeah, someone's going to inherit that, aren't they?
When we highlighted that, absolutely. And, I just heard so many good testimonies about him, the way that he coaches for the years. I mean, Alexis, who runs She Scores Sports, played for him as well. The list goes on. He's been able to reload every year and do that is, I believe, at like one of the highest levels that we've seen in our area. And I really don't believe that he's had it down, period. And again, these are some of the things that I kind of just like, magnified as we started to highlight, the game-winning streak. It's like he was doing things leading up to this point to where he can kind of, take that seat. And it's amazing that he was able to do that at the top.
Well, and let's also talk about that, too. What I think what makes it even more impressive is that he did it over multiple eras of the, way kids are coached, maybe the way kids receive coaching, different eras, different generations. I would have to check, but he probably coached some mother-daughters, you know what I mean?
Right, I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, right, exactly. But so as the style changed and the kid changed and everything else like that changed, his dominance stayed consistent.
Absolutely.
So he was finding a way to reach kids across multiple generations, which I think we've seen a lot of people not be able to do.
No, absolutely.
So I think that's definitely one of the biggest impressive things about this whole thing is that, when you talk about 31 years would be 1995, I guess, right? So you talk about just how much I was, but we're going to say that for another day.
Right.
How much things have changed over those 3 decades.
No, absolutely.
And how he was able to keep that constant. To me, that's one of the most impressive feats.
I think that's one of the biggest skills to have as a coach. And if you are one of the ones that more as an X and O guy, I believe that those X and O coaches really have a really good recruiter behind them. And that's one of the things that you have to do, be able to bring kids in. And the biggest thing is retain them. And I believe that Princess Anne and their program is actually a good representation of what winning can do. We haven't seen a lot of successes for their football team. And, and that, of course, gets to the point where we get into off season and we wonder what the numbers look like as far as the football team going into the fall season. As for basketball, they do pretty well on the boys team.
They do.
For the girls, this consistent winning continues to bring in, I would believe, like a dominant pipeline of girl athletes who can really take the floor and do some things over their 4 years in high school. I think that's really one of his biggest things. The winning and the consistency of whatever he's pushing to his girls is something I would like to look into more as well. But again, I've heard a lot of stories. He's just been able to continue to do that over those years. And I think keeping the main thing the same thing has been working for him really well.
Well, here's the other thing, too. I looked it up at one point, but I don't remember what it is. Their margin of victory this year was off the charts.
Absolutely.
That Menchville State title game, unless I'm missing a regular season game, which I could be, but that Menchville State title game was, I think, the only time they trailed in the fourth quarter.
I would stand behind you on that.
Now,
one.
I haven't looked at that, everybody.
Yeah.
So
I would stand behind you on that
in
one.
the comments, just go easy on me.
Yeah.
But I think. That wouldn't surprise me.
No, absolutely.
So and nobody else. Unless I'm missing a single-digit loss that they had or win that they had, rather. No one else really seemed to be able to stay close to him. Kings Fork, did a pretty good job in the state semis, quarters, whatever it was. I guess it was the state quarters.
Yeah, it was the quarters.
Yeah,
the quarters.
exactly.
Yes.
Yep. So they did a pretty good job there for 3 quarters of that game, and then just Princess Anne did what they do. But I mean, point is, you can probably count on one hand how many times they've been challenged in the last 2 years.
No, absolutely. And I mean, again, for people that go and watch Princess Anne games, it could possibly get boring because you kind of know what to expect.
Right.
But again, they go out there and they've had their trials and tribulations. I know that they dealt with a few injuries, as all teams do as well. But one of those was being in the state championship. Micah Ojo was able to make her way back out there, and they were able to continue that dominant run. But I mean, you did see sparks from different teams along their schedule. But again, ultimately, they were able to create that Maury deficit, that they carry in football, and they kind of carried it over here as well too. Just be able to create big margins between the teams that they are facing. It's kind of hard to come back against Princess Anne.
Let's also talk about community impact, right? Because I remember that game against Catholic, which was supposed to be a good game because Catholic's a good team, and Princess Anne made it not a good game,
Heavily
and whatever. Yeah, but point is, the electricity in that gym that night was fantastic. I mean, it was one of the best atmospheres, period, I've ever been a part of. I'm not talking girls, boys basketball, splitting them up. I mean that I've been a part of for a regular season game in this area. That's one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The students were there. It was packed out. It was enthusiastic. It was fired up. I mean, it was great. So I think just, being able to reach across and touch your community that way and your school that way and resonate in the hallways for the school. I remember walking in one time and I saw the cross-country guys practicing and they were stretching. And they're like, hey, who are you here to talk to? I said, girls basketball, and they said who? I said probably Micah Ojo. They're like, okay, yeah, of course. But they have really impacted the hallways of their school, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. It still brings that winning energy, and I think it can feed on to so many different sports as well. I mean, different sports in the program. But just goes to say the way that he went out. I mean, again, talking about that Catholic game.
Yeah,
that was a heavily anticipated game. A lot of people wanted to see that game for quite some time now. There was a clip that we shared as well that we clipped off of another video where he was personally inviting Catholic to, play that game as well because rankings and things like that were, one of the biggest conversations at that time. And it was like one more box to check on.
Yeah.
And I throw a lot of respect to him for kind of checking off that box as well, not being scared of what they would call ducking any type of rank or game to play. That was really good. And then again, that helped elevate girls basketball locally.
Yes.
And on top of that, I think that he and amongst a lot of other guys helped set, the standard for public schools placing national rankings.
So you ready for this one? Because this, I looked at him like he was nuts when he said this last night during our interview. I said I was asking him about, I don't remember what the question was, something about his accomplishments, and he said something about, yeah, but I should have done better. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? And he's like, I had 793. I should have got 8 something, So, but I think it's an interesting mindset to show that people at that level, they're always kind of, more focused on what they have yet to achieve or what they didn't do or what they could have done or, whatever the case may be over what they have done. So what a mindset, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I could have done better. And I was like, Coach, I mean, that's probably why you're so good.
Shows the tenacity of him. And I mean, the girls follow. That is, I mean, honestly, how else could you explain the results of the team when coach is talking like that? I mean, really, a lot of coaches that are really good understand how much their student athletes absorb their energy, their thought process on things and things of that nature. I mean, they spend a lot of time with these coaches, almost equal to the time that they spend with their parents on a weekday, right? So again, to take that time and really utilize picking up those big, those productive things from a coach and then putting it out on the court. I mean, I think that's what we've seen here in these past, several years. decade at this point, right? And so again, it just says a lot to his mindset, to want to keep going. And then you were right there on the edge of 800, so close that we were able to kind of round it up and give it that 800 stamp. But we, 793, I feel like it's no less.
Nothing to sneeze at. Exactly. I joked with him. I said, "Yeah, Coach, we were all just talking about how you underachieved."
Yeah.
But the impact that he had beyond the court too. We were talking to Zakiah Stevenson yesterday, who's at James Madison now, and is one of his countless former players who have gone D1 and done big things. She was talking about how he was an amazing coach and had an impact and everything like that. And just playing for him was an experience because she said one time she was shooting a free throw and he's there and better not miss it or I'm taking you out. I think she said it was kind of a lopsided game and he was half joking, but he did. She missed, and he did take her out. So but the relationship that he cultivated with his players, I think, is definitely key too. Because I mean, the impact that he's had on countless young ladies who have, I'm sure, taken what he's taught them into life, is probably immeasurable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like, a lot of people will hear that story and think one thing, but a lot of athletes and people who love the game would know that that's just a mere way of him setting the standard. You know what I mean? And I believe that he wholeheartedly believes that was a shot that girl can make with her eyes closed, asleep, and probably throw it behind her back. But again, that's just probably, the energy that he brings towards it is what he expects. And I believe that most of the time what he expects usually comes to fruition with this group of girls that he gets ready for the competition. So, I mean, again, that takes a relationship.
Absolutely.
So that says a lot about the relationship that he has with them. He's not just pointing fingers and doing those things. I mean, they really are understanding where he's coming from mentally, and they're able to work together to ultimately bring the goal together. And hats off to him.
And he always sat at the other end of the bench, which I thought was cool. It was like his own little thing. Like he didn't sit by the scores table. He was down the bench a ways. So
actually, I didn't even know
I always found that always made me smile. Like it was his own little style, and I mean, he trusted everybody. That's for sure. Hey, Drew, what's next for them? Do you think? Where do they go from here?
Just like any team, again, you never want to pray, not pray, but even like kind of project any type of downfall. I believe that, he would probably have a hand in, or somebody who has good roots with the school, of course, would be to have a chance to have their hand in, coming in and it being a smooth transition. I don't think I see Princess Anne, falling down, drastically, anything like that. I do believe that they'll be able to retain those girls as long as they, they have the right leadership and system in place, which I feel like he wouldn't leave it like that if he had to say so, of course. I think that they'll be just fine, and they'll be able to continue that energy. And again, a lot of schools have down years and transitions, but again, for me right now, they're the forerunning program for Princess Anne. You can't talk about Princess Anne without talking about girls basketball.
Right.
So I look forward to seeing these girls really keep that thing going.
Well, and I think in terms of what's next, and of course Coach Brummage, the AD, and everybody over there knows what they're doing and has an idea and has a plan, I'm sure. But you think about what the benefits would be of maybe bringing a former player. Somebody who has learned under him, knows that standard. It can be more of a as seamless as a transition as you possibly could get. Now I mean, they may have a total other idea and somebody who they think they could bring in and it would maybe be a little different but could have the same results. Like I said, they know more than I do, but from the outside looking in, that's certainly, I would not be surprised to see if it were a former player.
No, absolutely.
To come in who's familiar with the culture, the success, maybe who has coached a little bit on her own, and now is kind of coming back home. So I'm very curious to see where they go and who will fill those giant shoes.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of pressure, but then I think somebody would have a lot of fun coming in there and, just kind of picking up where he left off. And it's one of the best situations that you could possibly be in, I believe. So, again, former players always get the upper side on being able to get a chance to come back to their school and coach it. I mean, not to take the shine off of here, but, Coach Cam Baycoat over at Bethel just got hired as well. He was a 4-year starter there. We graduated the same year. He's been in this game for some time. And, just being able to step off the court and come back is the same thing. So, you could possibly see that type of image here, and that's kind of what I look for. But again, whatever is the best situation for Princess Anne and those girls is kind of what I'm headed towards. So, I mean, I think that they'll be just fine.
Yeah,
they'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Darnell Dozier, 793 wins, I think only 59 losses, 16 state titles in 31 years of coaching. Salute to you, Coach. Job well done. Enjoy your retirement, whatever that may hold. And thanks very much for all your help over the years. Drew, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Great to catch up about a legend. We'll see you guys next time here on the No Limit Sports Podcast.